Something that is true of just about every little toy shop like this is that stock is going to sit around for quite a long time. And when you're a little shop like this, space is at a premium. Anytime something new comes in, whether you buy it from a distributor or buy it from another collector, there's always going to be a struggle of figuring out exactly what to do with all of it because you want more inventory, you want more things to be able to sell to people, but what do you do when you've got all of this stuff that's been sitting around for a long time and you need to keep the place looking fresh while still making room for everything else? When you have a shop like this and you have that situation, we play what I call the Tetris game, which is basically what it sounds like. It is trying to find all those little nooks and crannies of space that you haven't used yet, and that is where all the new stuff goes, or it is how you reshuffle things. In a shop like this, we're going to be sitting on things for a long time. Admittedly, like this shop has been around for a year and a half, and there's plenty of things here that have been around for that length of time. And there's just no avoiding that, unless you are in a really high populated area that's going to turn over your inventory, within a couple months. You're not going to go through everything that fast. Stuff is going to sit around, stuff is going to collect dust. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because the longer you sit on a collectible, the more valuable it becomes and the higher the chance that someone's going to come in and buy it. The problem is that when people come into the store, you don't want it looking the same all the time. You don't want every time they visit the store to go, oh, well, everything's still here. So that is where the Tetris game comes in. It is the art of working within three-dimensional space and trying to figure out all this stuff has to go somewhere. And then where does it go, and where does the stuff that you moved go to make that happen? That seems pretty easy. And that's happened many times. If you've watched enough of these Toy Store Lives, like you've looked here in the background of these videos, and things have changed. You can notice that some things are in different locations. You notice that those big Star Wars vehicles at the top have shuffled around or they've completely changed. The Pokemon shelf all the way behind me has definitely changed just about every time you've turned on one of these videos. What you don't see a lot are the shelves that change the most. Things like the Funko Pop shelf that is actually behind my camera. That is also getting ready for another big shuffle. I have Marvel sections that are getting thin. I have 7 shelves full of Marvel Pops, but they're thinner shelves. I can consolidate that down to 6 and give the extra space to my anime Pops, which you can see here, all anime. So that is going to be in need of expansion. So I look at the places that can do with a lack of expansion, a retraction, and then that shelf becomes the new space for the new hotness that is actually going to make me some money. That is a constant struggle, and it basically means that in my downtime at this store, I'm spending it walking around, seeing what can go where. How can I reshuffle this to look clean and look different, but still make sense? And the making sense part is like sometimes the hardest thing about this. Like my Lego shelf right over here, it's just a little end cap because we don't really get in too many people selling us Lego sets. But I got enough sold a couple weeks ago that, okay, I don't have enough to really fill out an entire end cap anymore. So what do? I dug out a box of loose Simpsons figures that we've been sitting on forever. Finally put them in box, priced them out, put them over there. And that is just my fictional yellow shelf. That's my yellow people shelf between Simpsons and Lego minifigures. That's literally the only rationale I have to that shelf making any sense. And sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't. It'll tell you, like, a lot of times, little shops like this, the nightmare scenario is on the end caps. On the other side, like the far side of these shelves that you have no way of seeing in this video. That's where the chaos is. That's where disorder lives. Nothing like facing outward, but mostly like random things that just cannot fit in anywhere else, or the places where they would normally fit in. It's just too loaded for them. So onto the end cap they go, out of immediate sight. But for the person who's after things like that, they're gonna dig anyway, so it's not too big of a deal to put them all the way back there. And they have, there's always room for promotion. If enough stuff comes in that makes sense, I will reorder the shelves and we will figure everything out again. A big one, a big one. So recently, we took in a warehouse purchase. And so someone was liquidating a full warehouse full of stuff that has been sitting around since the 90s. And it's stuff I really like. It's old Kenner Beetlejuice figures and Kenner's Alien. I love the 90s Alien line, like the Bull Alien, the Scorpion Alien, those kind of things. I loved that toy line as a kid. And now we got a whole section of it, which you can kind of see right here. You see one of the vehicle boxes there, some carded figures there. That entire wall of that gondola display, that became my 90s shelf. It wasn't originally that. Originally, it was a second video game shelf. We had two full walls of video game toys because that's just how much inventory we had at the time. But when all this stuff comes in and I have absolutely no space for it, and literally the owners are going like, if you can't put it all out, don't worry about it. We know it's a lot. Ha 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 ha. Do not underestimate me. I am a toy collector. I am a display toy collector. I've been doing this a long time. If anyone can work within three-dimensional space, it's a toy collector who puts his stuff in shelves, because that is a master of working in three-dimensional space and working every single gap to your advantage. So here's what happens. I take everything from that shelf. It is a video game shelf. It is mostly FPS toys. So I take everything off of one of these random end caps and I spread it to the other end caps, trying to make enough space as I can on the side of the video game wall. And then all of my Fortnite stuff goes off there. So now there's an entire end cap that is just Fortnite toys. Not enough space. All right, so consolidate everything on one video game wall, shuffle all of that around, and now I've got a extra space in that wall, so all my Halo stuff goes from one wall to the other wall, and now I have one super packed video game space, and that's still not enough space. I still have more video game stuff. I take all the Kingdom Hearts stuff. I move it over to this end cap over here. I shuffle a few other Disney stuff onto that wall, so now it is this like weird ad hoc Disney section. Still not enough space, so even some extra little weird things end up going to other locations. We had like a Mad Moxie statue, which right now the light is flaring out. You see that white square? There. That was a Mad Moxie statue. That found a new home. There's a Power Fist from Fallout. That one went over there with some of the big box toys closer to the door. You gotta get creative. Like, wherever it makes sense to go, sometimes it's just gotta go there, no matter how far you have to stretch to make it make sense. You gotta work it all in somehow. It was a lot of work. It was an all-day thing just to clear one wall for all this stuff to go. But now we have this beautiful 90s section where it's Kenner Aliens, it's Crash Dummies, it's Beetlejuice, it's Waterworld. There's one Waterworld box down there. And even then, the Tetris game is not always nice, because you inevitably in a Tetris game you will end up with this like one section of your Tetris stack where it's just little tiny gaps in there. You just can't do it. It just gave you the wrong pieces to work with. And that's pretty much how this works as well. I've got two racks that are just full of just random 90s toys. I have one Captain Planet figure. I have one Gargoyles figure. I have like one 90s Speed Racer toy. I've got like two VR Troopers, three VR Troopers, two Predators, that kind of nonsense. I don't have anywhere for those others to go, but it all works into the 90s shelf, so there's just 2 pegs full of random toys. That's something else that happens a lot in a random, like, little town toy shop like this. You're just going to end up with like racks and sections where it's like none of this makes the least amount of sense. I'm looking at my Marvel section right now, and I have one Marvel section that is just 90s X-Men, Marvel superhero toys. Good. To the left of that is the Marvel Legends. Good. Above that is the Toy Biz Marvel Legends. Good. All that makes sense. But the one I can really see from here is against the window, and it's literally just like one Fantastic Four toy, one New Mutants toy, like one Hulk toy, one like not Legends, Avengers, Iron Man toy. It is just random, and then like 90s, 80s, 90s like rubber figures that we just happened to get one day. It's disorganized, it's cluttered, but you make it work with what you're working with. You got to make it work somehow. So that is how it's currently working for this store. It's weird, but as long as it functions and as long as people can see everything, then it works. And sometimes you just have to take, it's a minor victory. But all that goes into keeping the store looking fresh. Like every time you walk in, you should notice something different. Right now, people walk in, they look to the right, oh, there's a Simpsons section that wasn't here before. And soon when they walk in, they'll look to the left and go, oh, the Funko Pops switched around. Okay, this arrangement makes much more sense. Because like right now, I've got Marvel and Disney next to each other, which kind of makes sense, but wouldn't it make more sense to have the DC comic Pops along with the Marvel Pops? So that's what's going through my head right now to shuffle all of that together. So lots of different elements like that make the toy store what it is. Makes it interesting, but it definitely keeps me busy at the same time. And the struggle still continues. Every time someone buys something big, the Tetris game begins anew as you try to fill gaps with the stuff that you've got. And sometimes that doesn't make sense either. I lose a Star Wars vehicle up there. I don't have any other Star Wars vehicles from that generation. What do I do? What goes up there? I got to figure it out on the spot. Do I lose one big piece and make a gap that I can't fill up? Is it time to completely play the Tetris game and redo that 100%? I don't know. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's all about gauging just how thin it's all getting and what can you do with it that still makes sense and is still going to look good to a customer. And what keeps it all fresh every time familiar eyes find this store again. It is a constant struggle, and it's one of those things that you don't hear about at a toy shop. The fact that there is a lot of work that goes into even a shop that looks disorganized. There's always some kind of form or logic to it. I've been in super cramped, super chaotic toy stores, but they still had some sense of organization and reason behind everything they did. And that's kind of what you have to shoot for more often than not. Just some kind of reasoning behind the chaos, because sometimes the Tetris game doesn't give you the pieces you want, but you still got to drop them in somewhere, and you just got to hope that you're going to eventually clear it down until you can get right back to all of that weirdness and chaos and clean it up later. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a time-consuming thing. And a lot of people don't realize how much work goes into just keeping the store looking fresh and making sense. And it's a simple thing, but when you think about it, a lot goes into it, and it's not as easy as you would think it was. And that is the toy store life. Guys, I am facing the most powerful enemy any YouTuber can face, the algorithm, and I need your help to defeat him. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. Every time you do, we attack that algorithm and we drive it back until it can no longer defeat this channel. Thank you very much.